Single dad was offered $1 million for one night by a billionaire woman. But his answer changed everything. $1 million. One night. No intimacy, no touching. Just stay. So I can sleep. Nathan paused mid-fold, the last white towel still hanging from his hands. He looked up. She stood at the center of the small treatment room, bathed in the soft amber glow of overhead lights, her voice steady but trembling at the edges. Her dress was silk charcoal-colored without a single wrinkle. Her posture was immaculate. Her eyes, ice and fire, didn't blink. Silence. That kind of silence that wraps around your ribs and holds you still. Nathan replied, slowly each word, slicing clean through the tension. I'm sorry. I don't sell my presence. Not for any price. The woman didn't flinch. No anger, no embarrassment. Just a pause, like someone hearing a foreign language for the first time. He didn't know who she was. Didn't recognize Evelyn Black, CEO of Blackwell Holdings, a woman who closed billion-dollar deals without breaking stride, who once made a sitting senator resign with a 2-sentence email. She tilted her head, her voice casual as a cocktail stir. Do you know who I am? Nathan shrugged. I assume. A client. You're not curious. Curiosity doesn't pay rent. She let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh. Not of humor, but disbelief. $1 million is a lot of money for someone like you? Nathan nodded. It is. He looked at her without resentment, without apology. But I need my daughter to learn what kind of man her father is more than I need another zero in my bank account. The room thickened with a silence that wasn't empty but full of things unsaid, full of weight. She scanned the room, plain beige walls, an old wooden cabinet, eucalyptus steam rising from a modest diffuser. Everything here was real. No luxury, no polish, no performance. You think I made that offer because I'm desperate for a man, she asked, a razor-thin smile playing at her lips. No, Nathan replied, still folding the towel. I think you're desperate for rest, and for someone you don't have to pretend in front of. For a moment, she said nothing. Then, finally, you're interesting. He walked over and opened the door, voice soft but firm. I'm not taking your money. But if you really need a quiet night, the lounge out front's open till 11. Sofa's free. She stayed still like a queen, trying to decide whether to descend the throne. No car, he asked as she glanced down at her phone. I'll stay. He nodded, unfazed, then closed the door behind her like nothing had happened. 15 minutes later, Nathan emerged from the back office. She was still there, sitting with perfect posture, hands, folded eyes fixed on the empty parking lot beyond the glass window. No phone, no laptop, no makeup touch-ups. Just stillness. As he passed, her voice stopped him. What kind of woman do you think I am? He turned toward her. I don't think anything. He paused, then added, It only takes 5 seconds to label someone, but it takes a lifetime to realize you were wrong. She let out a brittle chuckle. I've spent 12 years convincing the world I'm not fragile, and I still can't sleep through a single night. Nathan didn't ask why, didn't press. Then I understand why you'd offer $1 million for peace, he said, simply. You mocking me? No, he said. I mean that. He paused at the reception counter, hands resting calmly. Just, some of the things we need most can't be bought. She turned her face toward him, eyes searching. And for the first time in years, Evelyn Black felt something inside her drop, not from fear or shame, but from recognition. This man wasn't afraid of her. Near midnight, Nathan came out for one last round of closing duties. She was still there, curled into the corner of the sofa, fast asleep. Her head tilted slightly, one arm wrapped loosely across her waist, the light from the street lamp painting soft shadows across her face. She looked less like a tycoon and more like a child lost in a world far too loud. He fetched a thin blanket from the supply closet and gently draped it over her shoulders. As he pulled away, her eyes opened. Do you think I'm a terrible person? Her voice was so soft it barely reached him. He sat down across from her, not too close. "I think you're searching for something you lost. And sometimes, when people don't know how to ask for help, they offer what they have: money." She studied him for a long time. "If I had no money, would you have stayed?" "If you had no money," Nathan said, "maybe we would have talked as two people, not as a buyer and a price tag." Evelyn turned away, but something broke loose in her expression, something tender, something unguarded, a smile. Barely there, but real. That night she slept soundly, not because of the sofa, not because of the spa's silence, but because for the first time in over a decade someone had stayed and asked for nothing. The news hit Evelyn Black the way silence hits a crowded ballroom, sudden, jarring, and unforgettable. He said no. No one had said no to her in years. Not bankers, not senators, not her own fiancé, until he betrayed her with a smile and an ironclad prenup she didn't see coming. But this man, a massage therapist in a faded gray polo folding towels like life never owed him anything. He said no. Just like that, without blinking, without flinching. And then he offered her a blanket. She hadn't stopped thinking about it since. The morning after that strange, quiet night at the spa, Evelyn sat in her penthouse suite, untouched croissant on her plate, coffee growing cold. A panoramic view of the city spread out in front of her, but all she saw was the look in Nathan's eyes. He wasn't impressed. He wasn't intimidated. He wasn't interested. What kind of man walks away from $1 million like it's a casual Tuesday Ms.? Black Julia, her assistant, poked her head into the dining area. "Your 10-0 with the Shanghai delegation is waiting in Conference 2. Evelyn blinked. "Tell Harold to start without me. I'll join later." "But they requested I said later, Julia." As the door clicked shut, Evelyn opened her phone, typed in River Wellness Spa. Her finger hovered over the number, then stopped. No, that would be obvious. She needed a reason, a real one. 10 minutes later, she was in the back seat of her black Escalade sunglasses on voice-clipped, "Take me to River Wellness. No media, no security. I don't want anyone to know." The driver hesitated. "Ma'am, are you sure? That part of town isn't. I'm not asking for your opinion." "Yes, ma'am." Nathan was folding fresh sheets when he heard the door chime. He didn't look up right away. He didn't need to. There was something about her presence. It was the kind that didn't ask permission to take up space, it simply was. "Good afternoon," he said, calm and neutral, still not looking. "Same service as last time." "No." Her voice was low, deliberate. "Today, I just want to talk." Now he looked up. She wore a soft cream blouse tucked into dark jeans, her hair down. This time, less CEO, more human. But the steel in her eyes remained. "I don't talk during sessions," he replied. "I don't want a session." There was a pause, thick and still. Then Nathan motioned toward the small chairs near the window. He sat across from her, arms, relaxed eyes, quiet. Evelyn folded her hands in her lap like she was on trial. "I don't do this," she began. "Offer strangers money. Talk to people I don't understand." She met his gaze. "You didn't take the money." "No." "Why, I told you." "No, you gave me a principal. I'm asking for the reason." Nathan leaned back slightly, studying her. "Because I know what it feels like to be bought. And I made a vow after everything that I wouldn't let my daughter watch me become that version of myself again." Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. Then she said softly, "My father used to say, 'Money isn't love, but it'll make people act like it is.'" "That's not love," Nathan said. "That's performance." She almost smiled. Almost. "Maybe I've been performing so long I forgot who I was off stage." Nathan looked at her, not just at her face, but through her. "There's still someone real in there," he said. "She's just scared of being seen without the armor." Evelyn exhaled the kind of breath that's been waiting to escape for years. "Do you think people like me deserve peace?" Nathan didn't hesitate. I think everyone does. The question is, what are you willing to give up to find it? She nodded, slowly processing. You think I'm broken? No, he said. I think you've been cracked open. And maybe that's the beginning of something better. The room went quiet again, but this time it wasn't awkward. It was still. Present. Then Evelyn stood. Do you believe in second chances, Nathan? I believe in people who earn them. She held his gaze. Dinner. Just dinner. No offers, no expectations. Just real. Nathan didn't answer immediately. He looked down at the folded sheets in his hands, then back at her. I'm not your project. I know. And I'm not an escape from your world. You're not. Then why? Because she said, voice steady but soft. You're the first person who's made me feel like I don't have to buy my worth. Nathan blinked once, then twice. He set the sheets down. Tomorrow, 6 o'clock, somewhere with decent pie. Evelyn smiled. A real one this time. You like pie, I like things that remind me of who I used to be before the noise. She turned to leave, but paused at the door. Nathan. He looked up. Thank you for saying no. He tilted his head. Most people aren't grateful when I do. I'm not most people. He smirked. I'm starting to see that. She walked out without another word, and for the first time since her world had cracked beneath her feet, Evelyn Black didn't feel like she was falling. She felt like she might be landing. The bell above the spa door chimed delicate as wind chimes on a quiet porch. Nathan looked up from the front desk expecting another early client. It wasn't. It was her. Again. Evelyn Black stood in the doorway like she owned the light around her hair in a loose twist. Dark jeans, white button-down sunglasses pushed up onto her head. This time, she wasn't alone. A small girl, maybe 6, peeked out from behind her holding a plush toy in one arm and Evelyn's hand in the other. Nathan's brows lifted. His voice was calm, but curious. You brought backup. Evelyn glanced down at the girl and gave a small smile. This is Mia. She's not mine, she added quickly. Nathan's friend Sandra had an emergency. I offered to watch her for the afternoon. Nathan chuckled softly. Sandra trusts you with her kid. She trusts that I don't talk much and always have snacks. Mia stepped forward, eyes wide and searching. She wore pink sneakers and a t-shirt with a hand-drawn rocket on it. She studied Nathan like he was both new and familiar. You're the man who didn't take the money, she said plainly. Nathan blinked. Excuse me. Evelyn froze. Mia. It's okay, the girl shrugged. I heard Aunt Sandra talking. She said you were brave, that most grown-ups forget how to be. Nathan looked at Evelyn. She looked away. Mia continued, undeterred. Are you really a superhero? Nathan knelt to her level. No cape, no powers, just good hands, I guess. She grinned and held up her plush toy. This is Astronaut Bear. He likes people who tell the truth. Then I'm honored, Nathan replied, gently shaking the bear's fuzzy paw. Evelyn watched the exchange silently. There was something in the way Nathan spoke to Mia, not the patronizing tone adults often used, but real conversation. Real warmth, no rush, no hidden agenda. It made her chest ache. I'll just wait in the corner, she said, taking a seat near the window. I don't want to interrupt. You're not, Nathan replied. In fact, you might like this. 10 minutes later, Mia was sprawled on a yoga mat in the back room while Nathan demonstrated basic stretches. Evelyn sipped from a paper cup, watching them from a distance. She should have been checking emails, responding to board messages, scanning stock updates. But she didn't. Instead, she watched a man who had once turned down her fortune make a 6-year-old laugh with nothing more than a stretch and a silly sound effect. Hey, Nathan, Mia asked mid-giggle. Why don't you work at a big company if you're so smart? Evelyn straightened slightly in her seat. Nathan paused, then smiled. Because I like seeing the sky when I leave work. And because sometimes peace is worth more than prestige. Mia tilted her head. What's prestige? Fancy way of saying other people think you're important. But you are important. Astronaut Bear says so. Nathan laughed softly. He sounds wise. Evelyn's voice surprised even herself. He is. Nathan turned eyes meeting hers. It was the first real quiet moment between them since their conversation 2 days ago, the first where it didn't feel like a test. You're good with her, Evelyn said. Kids don't play games. They ask what they mean, say what they feel. There's honesty in that. You think grown-ups lose that. I think most trade it for titles and caution. For armor. She nodded slowly, glancing at Mia. I used to know that kind of honesty. Before things got expensive. Nathan looked at her. Then maybe it's time to renegotiate. Evelyn let out a breath. You talk like someone who used to live a very different life. I did. He didn't elaborate. She didn't push. Later, while Mia colored quietly on the floor, Evelyn approached the reception desk. Why do you do this, Nathan? Why this life? He thought for a moment. Because it doesn't lie to me. She raised an eyebrow. When I put pressure on someone's back, I feel their truth. I feel the weight they carry where it lives. And sometimes I can help lift it. That's honest work. I didn't always do honest work. She leaned in, voice quieter. Tell me something, honestly. If I hadn't been who I am, would you have treated me differently? Nathan met her gaze. No, but you would have treated yourself differently. That stopped her. Meaning, sometimes the richest people are the loneliest because they start to believe the money is them. And when someone looks past the wealth, it scares them. Evelyn's throat tightened. And you looked past it. He smiled gently. I saw a woman who couldn't sleep. That's a kind of pain I understand. Just then, Mia ran over arms full of crayon drawings. I made this for you, she said, handing Nathan a page filled with crooked hearts and stick figures. Nathan knelt, taking it like a prized gift. Thank you, Mia. I'll hang it on the wall. Mia turned to Evelyn. He's not a superhero, but he's what superheroes wish they could be. Evelyn blinked, caught off guard. Why do you say that? Because he helps people feel better without punching anything. Nathan laughed, and Evelyn found herself laughing too. Not because it was funny, but because it was pure, unfiltered, unbought. That night, Evelyn stood at her window, the skyline twinkling behind her, the silence not as heavy as usual. She thought about the man with the quiet hands and the little girl who said things adults forgot how to mean. She thought about the feeling that had bloomed in her chest, foreign but warm. And for the first time in a very, very long time, she didn't feel tired. She felt awake. Nathan arrived at the small diner 15 minutes early. It was the kind of place where the walls smelled faintly of maple syrup and coffee, where the waitress knew your order before you sat down and the booths still had tiny rips patched with duct tape. He liked that, things that weren't pretending to be more than they were. He chose the booth by the window, the one with a view of the streetlights flickering on against a darkening sky. He sat with a quiet patience, sipping black coffee, listening to the hum of clinking cutlery and low conversation. And then, at exactly 6, the door opened. Evelyn walked in like she'd never owned a skyscraper, like she wasn't the woman who had once bought out a competitor just to fire their board. Tonight, she was wearing jeans, a soft green sweater, and flats. No makeup, no jewelry, no mask, just her. Nathan stood. You found it. She smiled. You said it had good pie. I keep my promises. They sat. A beat of silence passed, not awkward, just new, like a blank page waiting for the first line. I haven't been in a place like this in years, she said, glancing at the laminated menu. No prefix, no wine pairings, just choices. That's the point. She looked up. Of what? Of life. You don't get peace by controlling everything. You get it by choosing what really matters. She nodded slowly, eyes scanning the dessert section. Do you recommend the cherry or the peach? Depends. You want sweet or true? She raised an eyebrow. Cherry's sweeter. No. Peach is honest. It's messy, Slightly tart, but worth it, like most things that last. Evelyn laughed. Not the polite kind, real laughter, soft and surprised. I don't think I've ever been given life advice through pie before. Nathan shrugged. Pie never lies. They ordered meatloaf for him, grilled cheese for her, 2 slices of peach pie to share. So Evelyn said once the waitress had refilled their water glasses and left them alone, "What made you leave the corporate world?" Nathan took a moment. He ran his thumb along the edge of his mug. I was making 6 figures. Had a corner office. People returned my calls in under 5 minutes. And I couldn't look my daughter in the eye without feeling like I was disappearing. Evelyn's smile faded. She was 3 when her mother left. Said I wasn't ambitious enough. That she wanted more. More, what, shiny things. A name that meant something in rooms that didn't matter. Evelyn was quiet, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. So I left the job, sold the car, moved to a smaller place, opened the spa. It doesn't impress anyone at parties, but my daughter sleeps in a bed I built with my own hands. That means more to me than any bonus ever did. That's not a small thing, Evelyn said softly. That's everything. Nathan met her eyes. What about you? What broke you open? She took a breath, long and careful. My father. He waited. He was brilliant, cold. He taught me that vulnerability was a weakness, that love was a distraction. When I turned 22, he handed me the keys to the company and said, "If you fail, you'll do it alone. If you win, don't expect applause." Nathan's jaw tightened. That's not parenting, that's grooming. She smiled bitterly. It worked. I became the ice queen he trained me to be. But when he died, I realized I didn't know how to mourn a man I had spent my whole life trying to impress. There was silence again, but this time it was sacred. Evelyn continued more quietly now. I spent the last decade proving to the world that I didn't need anyone, that I could win alone. And now, I don't even know what I'd do if I stopped running. You'd rest, Nathan said gently, and then maybe you'd begin. She looked down. Her hands were trembling. He reached across the table not to hold them, but to be there. Present. No one ever told me I was enough, she whispered. Then let me be the first, he replied. You don't have to earn your right to breathe. You already do. The pie arrived, sweet tart, perfect. They shared it in silence, but not loneliness. After the plates were cleared, Evelyn leaned back, eyes soft. Why did you say yes to dinner? Nathan considered. Because you showed up that night asking for peace, not power. And I thought, maybe that version of you deserves a chance. Evelyn bit her lip. What if I mess it up? Then you try again. That's what real people do. She smiled. And the peach? He grinned. Still honest, still messy, still worth it. They walked out together, the bell over the door jingling behind them. The night air was crisp, and Evelyn paused on the sidewalk, looking up at the stars just beginning to appear. I forgot the sky could be this quiet, she murmured. Nathan looked at her. Not the billionaire, not the CEO, not the woman with a guarded voice and a ledger full of wins, but the person underneath it all. It's been here the whole time, he said. You just had to stop running long enough to notice. And as they stood there side by side beneath a sky that asked for nothing, Evelyn Black realized something she hadn't felt in years. She didn't want the night to end. The rain came soft and steady, painting the windows of Nathan's tiny home with streaks of silver light. Inside, the air was warm, scented with cinnamon and old wood. The kind of smell that reminded Evelyn of things she hadn't let herself miss: slow mornings, childhood books, her mother's rare laughter before silence became their family's native tongue. She stood near the bookshelf, fingertips grazing the worn spines of novels and children's stories. You read all of these? She asked. Nathan poured 2 mugs of tea in the small kitchen. Not all. Some are for me. Some are for Lily. Some for the days that feel too quiet. Evelyn turned to him. I didn't picture you as a tea guy. I'm not, but sometimes whiskey doesn't heal the way people think it does. He handed her a mug. She accepted it like a truce. You really built this place? She asked, looking around the living room, humble, clean, lived in. A crocheted throw draped over the couch, a crayon drawing framed above the mantel, the fire crackling low. Nathan nodded. Took 3 years. Some days with a hammer, some days with prayers. You pray, not always with words. She sat on the edge of the sofa, tea warming her palms. It's quiet here. That's the point. Evelyn sipped, then asked, Do you ever miss it? The money, he said. She nodded. I miss not having to think about groceries. I miss knowing I could fix anything with a wire transfer. But I don't miss what it cost me. Evelyn tilted her head. What did it cost? Nathan looked at her, really looked. My reflection. She stilled. That's the line, isn't it? She said softly. The one no one warns you about. The moment when you stop recognizing the person's success made you become. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. A soft knock echoed from down the hall. Then a small voice, Dad Nathan, smiled. Come on out, baby. The door creaked open and Lily emerged in her pajamas, barefoot curls tousled, rubbing one eye. I had a weird dream, she mumbled, clutching her bunny. Evelyn's expression softened instantly. What kind of dream? Lily blinked at her. You were there. Evelyn blinked. Me. Lily nodded solemnly. We were on a boat. You had a sword. You saved Dad from a big sea monster. Nathan chuckled. I always knew you had a hero in you. Evelyn smiled at Lily. That's a very brave dream. Lily padded over and climbed into her father's lap without hesitation. Nathan held her instinctively like it was the most natural thing in the world. Are you staying here now? Lily asked Evelyn, her tone sleepy and innocent. The room held its breath. I'm just visiting, Evelyn said gently. But maybe I'll visit again if that's okay with you. Lily nodded. Okay, but next time bring your sword. I'll remember that. Nathan kissed the top of his daughter's head. Want me to walk you back to bed? Lily shook her head, yawning. Just stay here for a minute. So he did. Evelyn watched them in silence, something shifting inside her. Something she didn't have a name for. Something neither power nor prestige had ever managed to give her. Peace. Not the kind bought in resorts or spas, but the kind built slowly through trust, through small hands holding yours, through moments that ask for nothing but presence. Later, after Lily had fallen asleep again, Nathan returned to the living room. Evelyn was staring into the fire, lost in thought. He sat beside her. Close, but not too close. She's amazing, Evelyn said. She's the reason I wake up, even when I don't want to. Evelyn turned to him, eyes glinting in the firelight. Do you think people like me can still be good parents? Nathan didn't flinch. I think being a good parent doesn't mean never failing. It means showing up again after you do. She swallowed. Hard. I had a miscarriage. Years ago. I never told anyone, not even the father. Nathan didn't speak. He let the silence do what silence does best, hold space for what words can't carry. I buried the idea of motherhood so deep I forgot where I put it. But then, I saw you with her, and I wondered what kind of person I might have become if I'd known love like that. Nathan spoke quietly. You still can. She looked at him, almost afraid to believe it. You're saying, I could start again. I'm saying the best stories don't begin until the second act. Evelyn blinked, and then a single tear slid down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. Nathan reached over not to fix it, not to save her, but simply to offer his hand. And she took it, not out of romance, but out of reverence. Because in that moment, Evelyn Black realized something profound. Not all miracles are loud. Some are quiet. Some arrive as little girls with dreams about sea monsters. Some take the shape of men who fold towels and heal people with silence. And some begin on nights when it rains in homes built by hand with fires that burn slow but sure. Outside, the storm kept falling, but inside, something else had begun to rise. When Evelyn returned to her penthouse, something felt wrong. Not in the usual boardroom crisis or press leak kind of way. No, this was quieter, more internal. Like a pair of shoes she'd worn for years suddenly didn't fit anymore. She kicked off her heels and stood barefoot in the middle of her vast living room, floor-to-ceiling windows revealing the entire city beneath her. Skyscrapers blinked like stars trying to be important. And for the first time she looked at all of it and thought, none of this feels like home. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Heard you've been slumming it in massage parlors, Evelyn. You always did have interesting taste. C. She stared at the message. No signature needed. Charles, her ex-fiancé. The same man who had toasted her at charity galas and sold her out to investors behind closed doors. The man who had once whispered promises into her neck while hiding prenups in his desk drawer. The man who knew how to make one sentence feel like a trap. She ignored it. 3 days passed. Nathan didn't call. Neither did she. But the quiet between them didn't feel empty. It felt waiting. Then, on the 4th day, Evelyn stood outside the spa again. She didn't plan it. Her driver had taken a wrong turn, and suddenly there it was. The little blue door, the faded sign, the scent of eucalyptus wafting out like an old friend. She stepped inside. The woman at the front desk smiled politely. "Can I help? Tell Nathan I'm here." The woman blinked. "He's with a client at the moment, I'll wait." 20 minutes later, Nathan appeared, towel around his shoulders, hands slightly damp. He froze when he saw her. "You came back," he said, voice unreadable. "I didn't realize you had security clearance on who's allowed through the door," she said, a little sharper than intended. Nathan studied her. "What's wrong?" She opened her mouth, closed it, then said simply, "I think I forgot who I am." He motioned toward the small consultation room. "Come sit." They walked in. No candles, no spa music. Just 2 chairs, a desk, and the weight of unsaid things. She sat. "I got a text. From Charles." Nathan didn't react. "He knows about you. Or at least, that I've been coming here." Still silence. "He's planning something. I can feel it." "And what do you want me to do about it?" Nathan asked gently but directly. Evelyn blinked. "I don't know. God, I don't even know why I came here." "Yes, you do." She stared at him. "You came here because for once someone saw you without the headlines, without the armor, and you didn't want to lose that." Her voice dropped. "But I don't know how to keep it." Nathan leaned forward. "Start by telling the truth." She hesitated. Then she exhaled, slow, fragile. "I built this life from ashes. I watched men who called themselves mentors try to sabotage me. I dated men who loved my name more than my soul. I walked into rooms where no one expected me to speak, so I learned to speak louder than anyone else. I became unbreakable." She paused, looked up at him. "And then you looked at me like I didn't have to be." Nathan didn't blink. "You don't." "But what if I forget again?" she whispered. "What if one day I wake up and the version of me you're starting to care about is gone?" "Then I'll remind you," he said. "As many times as it takes." The words settled between them like a promise wrapped in stillness. Then, suddenly, her phone buzzed again. Another message, this time with a photo. Evelyn's breath caught. It was her, standing outside Nathan's spa. And the caption, "What would your board say if they knew the Queen of Acquisitions is being massaged by the help?" Her stomach twisted. Nathan saw her face pale. "What is it?" she showed him. He read it once, then again. Finally, he said, "Do you want to leave before this gets ugly?" She didn't answer. Instead, she stood, paced the small room like a lioness in silk, then turned sharply. "No," she said. "No, I'm not running." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "That's not the Evelyn I met." No, it's not. It's the one I used to be. But this time I'm staying, and not for some media stunt. Not to protect my image. I'm staying because I'm tired of living a life I have to keep explaining. Nathan smiled, slow and quiet. Now that sounds like the real you. She nodded once, then asked, So what do we do? Nathan shrugged. I make dinner. You help. She blinked. That's it. That's everything. That night in Nathan's kitchen, Evelyn chopped onions while he seasoned chicken and boiled pasta. There was no music playing, just the soft rhythm of domestic peace. I haven't cooked with someone since college, she said, eyes watering from the onions. Good, he replied. You're long overdue. You sure about this being involved with me could get complicated? Nathan looked at her serious. Peace isn't about avoiding complications. It's about knowing what's worth the mess. She looked down. And I'm worth it. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached over, gently wiped a tear from the corner of her eye and said, You were always worth it. You just forgot. And as the sauce simmered and laughter found its way into the corners of that small kitchen, Evelyn felt something loosen in her chest. Not because the threat was gone, but because for the first time she didn't feel alone in facing it. The first knock came just after midnight. Nathan had just finished washing the last dish when it echoed through the hallway, firm, deliberate, too measured to be anything casual. He dried his hands with the towel slung over his shoulder, glanced toward the door, then back toward Evelyn, who was still sitting at the kitchen table barefoot and wrapped in the comfort of quiet. Her posture stiffened. Expecting someone, he asked. No, she said, already rising. But I think I know who it is. Nathan walked slowly toward the door, placing his body slightly in front of hers out of instinct. He opened it. Charles stood in the frame, rain dotting his coat hair slicked back too perfectly for a man caught in a storm. He smiled, but it was the kind of smile that made Nathan's gut tighten. Well, Charles said, so this is where the Queen has been hiding. Evelyn stepped forward. Her voice was calm, clipped like a scalpel. What are you doing here? I came to talk, Charles said, eyes flicking toward Nathan. But I see you're busy. Nathan didn't flinch. You're on private property. Charles smiled again. Relax, spa man. I'm not here to fight, just here to deliver a little reality check. Evelyn folded her arms. Then deliver it. And go. Charles stepped in, ignoring Nathan's subtle move to block him. He walked slowly around the living room like a guest browsing a gallery. You know, Evelyn, for someone who used to dominate mergers and acquisitions, you've become quite the cliché. Falling for the help, hiding in a house that doesn't even have a doorman. Evelyn didn't blink. You always mistook power for insulation. That's why you never had any of your own. Charles turned. Still sharp. But here's the thing, I sent that photo to someone on your board. Just one. A whisper to see what happens. And guess what? The panic's already spreading. He walked toward her. They're planning a vote. Your seat as CEO is in question. Investors are rattled. Your past is being re-audited. Your entire image, carefully built and brilliantly ruthless, is about to fall apart. Nathan's voice was quiet but deadly firm. Then, why are you here? Charles turned to him, eyes glinting. Because I wanted her to know who was holding the match. Evelyn stared at him for a long moment. Then she stepped closer, so close he could smell the peppermint from her tea. I made a mistake, once she said, voice low. I mistook your proximity for loyalty, your ambition for passion. But this is just small. Charles laughed hollow. You don't get to rewrite the story now. No, she said, but I do get to decide how it ends. She moved toward the door, opened it wide. Goodbye, Charles. He lingered a second longer, as if searching for one last word that could crack her open. But none came. So he walked out, letting the rain follow him. The silence afterward was heavy, but not empty. Nathan walked over and closed the door behind him, locking it with a click that sounded louder than it should have. You okay? He asked. Evelyn nodded once. No, but I will be. She walked back into the kitchen and stood at the window watching the rain blur the city lights beyond. I knew it would come to this, she whispered. You don't rise that far without enemies. But I always thought I'd be ready. Nathan joined her at the window. Being ready doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. She looked at him. You should stay away from me. This isn't your war. I think it is now. Evelyn's breath caught. Why? Because I'm tired of watching good people stand alone. She smiled through the ache. You think I'm good, I think you're trying to be. That's all any of us really get. She turned fully to face him. What if I lose everything? Nathan reached out, touched her hand gently. Then we'll build something better. The next day, Evelyn walked into her office like a storm in heels. The same boardroom that once echoed with her commands now buzzed with whispers behind closed doors. She ignored them. Instead, she called a press conference. Damage control Nathan had asked that morning, pouring her coffee. No, she replied. Truth. The cameras flashed. Reporters murmured. Investors leaned in. Evelyn stepped up to the podium. No cue cards, no PR script. Just her. I've spent years building a legacy that's defined by numbers performance and public perception. But behind every headline is a human being. One who doesn't always get it right. Gasps. Typing. Flashes. She continued. Recently, a personal relationship of mine was made public. I won't deny it. I won't hide it. Because for the first time in a long time, I've found something more valuable than control. She looked directly at the camera. I found peace. Silence. She held it. I'm not stepping down. I'm not stepping back. And if anyone believes that my personal life is a liability, then perhaps it's time we redefine what strength looks like in leadership. She stepped away from the podium to stunned quiet, and then a single clap, then another, and another, until the room roared. That night back at Nathan's, she found him reading a bedtime story to Lily. She fall asleep? Evelyn asked softly from the doorway. Nathan nodded. Out like a light. He stood. How was the speech? She smiled. I said what I meant, then you won. She looked around the room, then back at him. You were right. Peace doesn't mean nothing happens. It means knowing what's worth fighting for. Nathan stepped closer. And I want to fight for this. For us. For the version of me that only exists when I'm with you. He didn't say anything. Instead, he pulled her into his arms, and for the first time in years, Evelyn Black let herself be held not as a CEO, but as a woman, finally coming home. Evelyn stood at the edge of the ballroom, her gown shimmering like liquid shadow under the crystal chandeliers. All around her, the city's elite danced, drank, and laughed, clinking glasses as if money could drown out silence. She didn't belong here anymore, and that realization, once terrifying, now tasted like freedom. Nervous, Nathan's voice came from behind her, warm and grounding. She turned, catching his reflection in the mirror-lined wall beside her. He looked sharp, timeless, even black suit, no-tie hands in his pockets like he was always ready to fight or forgive depending on what the moment called for. Not nervous, she said, just aware. Aware of what that I used to think these rooms meant something. That if I could own them, I'd be safe. But now, all I see are people hiding behind champagne and expensive shoes. Nathan stepped beside her. It's easy to confuse applause with acceptance. She smiled faintly. Especially when applause is all you've ever chased. A man in a sleek gray suit approached them. Maxwell Grayson, board member, lifelong loyalist to Charles. Ms. Black, he said smoothly, or should I say, Ms. Rebrand? Evelyn didn't blink. Good evening, Maxwell. He smiled with his teeth. I saw your speech. Very compelling. A bit sentimental for a woman who once called emotions stock volatility. People change, she replied. Even CEOs. Maxwell's smirk faded. Don't get too comfortable. There are whispers that your little spa romance is affecting the company's valuation. Nathan stepped forward, voice calm but unshakable. Maybe the valuation needs to reflect more than market perception. Maybe it should reflect leadership with a soul. Maxwell scoffed. I'm sorry, and you are someone who doesn't need a name tag to know who he is. Maxwell's jaw tightened, but he turned and walked away without another word. Evelyn let out a slow breath. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, Nathan said, because sometimes the only way to protect what's real is to stare down what isn't. The evening unfolded in layers, shallow pleasantries veiled critiques, masked envy. Evelyn moved through the crowd with practiced grace, but her heart wasn't in the performance. Not anymore. Later, she found herself outside on the rooftop terrace alone under the stars. The city stretched endlessly before her, lights blinking like tired eyes refusing to sleep. Nathan joined her, handing her a glass of water. You've been out here a while. I needed air. You needed truth. She turned to him. I keep thinking about my mother. He waited. She used to come to these events with my father. Always wore blue. Always stood behind him 2 steps to the left. Perfect posture, perfect silence. She never spoke unless spoken to. Nathan nodded. That's how your father preferred it. No, she said. That's how she survived. He touched her hand. And how did you? I chose the opposite. I spoke louder, stood taller. I made men uncomfortable on purpose. I became the kind of woman my mother never had the freedom to be. Nathan's voice was low. And now I'm learning that strength doesn't mean never needing anyone. It means knowing who's worth needing. There was a beat of quiet before Nathan said, You're not your father. You're not your past. You're the one choosing what the next chapter looks like. And what if I don't know how to write it? He turned to face her fully. Then we write it together. She stared at him. Then quietly, I'm scared. Good, he said. Fear means you're on the edge of something real. Suddenly, her phone vibrated in her clutch. She frowned. It's Charles. Don't answer. I won't. But he sent a file. Nathan watched as she opened the document, her eyes scanned line by line until her entire face went still. She handed the phone to him. He's trying to leak financial records, claims I paid off multiple settlements tied to toxic work culture. All forged, all built to look real. Nathan read it. This could ruin you. She nodded. It's not true, but it's plausible. Enough to create noise. Why now? Because I didn't play his game. Because I dared to live outside the rules he thought I was bound to. Nathan met her eyes. Then, let's make our own rules. That night, back at Nathan's house, Evelyn paced the small living room while Lily slept in the other room, oblivious to the storm outside the walls. He wants to break me, Evelyn said, voice barely above a whisper. He doesn't care about the truth. He just wants the illusion of power back. Nathan sat on the couch watching her. You said once you used to measure your worth by how many rooms you could own. Maybe it's time to measure it by how many people you can inspire. She stopped pacing. You think I should go public with this? I think you should tell your story before someone else sells the lie. She sat beside him, exhausted. But what if people believe him, then show them something better to believe in? The next morning, Evelyn recorded a video from Nathan's front porch. No makeup, no lighting crew, no publicist. Just her. Just truth. I used to think strength meant never flinching, never folding. But I've learned something in the past few weeks. True strength is transparency, and healing is not weakness. It's rebellion in a world that profits from brokenness. The video went viral within hours. By noon, messages poured in from other CEOs, single parents, women in leadership, and quiet voices who had long felt like they didn't belong. And by evening, something remarkable happened. The board called off the vote. That night, Evelyn tucked Lily into bed while Nathan watched from the doorway. Do you want me to read you a story? Evelyn asked. Lily nodded. the one with the girl who finds her voice. Evelyn smiled. That's my favorite too. She began reading softly, her voice steady, and Lily's eyelids grew heavy. After she closed the book, she sat for a moment in the quiet. Nathan joined her in the hallway. She asked for that story almost every night, he said. She knows what it feels like to fight for your voice. Evelyn looked at him. So do I. And in that quiet hallway light, she realized she hadn't just defended her title. She had reclaimed her story. The first snowfall of the season came early. Evelyn stood by Nathan's window watching as flakes drifted like silent prayers onto the pine trees beyond. Lily had pressed her small hands against the cold glass, her giggles dancing through the room. "It looks like powdered sugar," she said. Nathan chuckled, kneeling beside her. Only if powdered sugar could cover up all the old mistakes. Evelyn turned at that soft smile on her lips, but something thoughtful behind her eyes. Later, after Lily had been tucked in with an extra quilt and 2 bedtime stories, Evelyn and Nathan sat on the worn leather couch in quiet companionship. Between them sat a box. Inside it, Evelyn's past. She opened the lid. A velvet pouch with a diamond necklace. Handwritten letters from her late father, letters she had never dared to open. And a photo of her and Charles, arms linked, polished smiles hiding 1,000 cracks. She held it for a second, then tore it in half. Nathan didn't speak. He just reached inside the box and pulled out a yellowing newspaper clipping. Youngest woman to lead Fortune 100 company. Evelyn Black breaks the ceiling. "I remember this," he said. "You looked unstoppable." "I was, but not unbreakable." Her voice was quiet. "After my father died, I inherited not just his company but his enemies, his secrets, and this expectation that I had to wear his armor even if it didn't fit." Nathan looked at her. "So, why keep the letters?" "Because I need to know if he ever saw me for who I really was, not just who he wanted me to be." She opened the first one, her hands trembling. "Evelyn, you scare me in the best way. You remind me of your mother, quiet when it matters, fierce when it counts. I wish I'd known how to love you better instead of just preparing you for war." Her breath caught. She kept reading, page after page, his words slowly shifting from distant mentorship to a kind of love she'd never received out loud. And when she finished, she sat in silence, grief and grace braided together in her chest. Nathan spoke gently. "You don't have to carry the whole weight anymore." She looked up, eyes glassy. I don't want to be CEO forever." That stunned him. "Really, I want to mentor someone. Build something quieter, something that doesn't need a spotlight to matter." Nathan leaned back. "What would you do instead?" "I'd start a fund. For single parents, small business owners, people like you who keep the world running without ever making the front page." He smiled, slow and genuine. "You know, that's the first time you've talked about the future without apologizing for it." She blinked. "Is it?" "It is. And I think that means you're healing." A few days later, Evelyn invited her board to an informal dinner. Not a power move, not a press event, just a table in her home-cooked lasagna and real conversation. One of the newer board members, Simone, asked, "Why here? Why now?" Evelyn lifted her glass. "Because for too long, I thought leadership meant distance. But now I believe it means connection, transparency, empathy." The oldest member, Mr. Patel, nodded slowly. "It's about time someone said that." Another smiled. "You've changed." "No," Evelyn replied. "I've come home to myself." The table went quiet, not out of discomfort, but respect. And for the first time in her professional life, Evelyn Black wasn't performing. She was simply being. After the dinner, Nathan met her on the balcony. "Well," he asked, "I think they saw me tonight. Not just the brand, but the human." He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "I like the human." She chuckled, then grew still. "I'm scared of what comes next. Because it's unknown. Because I've never lived a life that wasn't built on conquest. Nathan turned her gently to face him. Then, maybe it's time to live one built on love. Evelyn stared at him, and for a moment the whole world slowed. Not the grand kind of love. Not fireworks or headlines or sweeping gestures, but the kind that plants itself in the softest places. The kind that rebuilds. That weekend, Nathan took Evelyn and Lily to a winter market. It was small, local, just handmade ornaments, hot cocoa, a local choir humming carols. But it felt bigger than any gala Evelyn had ever attended. Lily tugged on her hand. "Can we get one of these?" she asked, pointing to a crooked ceramic ornament shaped like a heart. Evelyn knelt beside her. "Of course." "What do you want to write on it?" Lily thought, then smiled. "Us." Evelyn blinked and something warm surged through her chest. Later that night, back at Nathan's, Evelyn hung the ornament on the tiny tree by the fireplace. And beside it, she placed something else, her father's letter. Not to forget the past, but to honor it. And then let it rest. "Are you okay?" Nathan asked her, standing nearby. "I think I'm finally more than okay," she said. He stepped forward, brushing a curl from her face. Evelyn Black, former CEO, fearless, brilliant, and slightly terrifying. "What do you want now?" She laughed. "Peace? Purpose? And maybe to read bedtime stories." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "That's a pretty bold life plan." She leaned in. "I've lived bold. Now I want to live honest." And just like that, the woman who once ran boardrooms with iron resolve let herself soften in the arms of a man who never asked her to be anything other than who she truly was. As snow whispered softly against the windows once again, Evelyn whispered something even softer. "Thank you for seeing me." Nathan smiled, holding her tighter. "I never stopped." It was a Tuesday morning when Evelyn received the call that should have made her heart leap. Instead, it made her sit very still. Ms. Black said, the voice from the other end clipped and rehearsed. "We'd like to offer you the position of chairwoman for the new international venture. Unlimited resources, global reach, full autonomy." There was a pause, and a compensation package exceeding anything you've had before. She stared at the espresso in her hand, steam curling up like a silent question. "I appreciate the offer," she replied, calm and clear. "But I'm not accepting it." The man chuckled, unsure if he'd heard her right. "Excuse me?" I said no, respectfully. But this is the kind of role people spend their lives chasing. Evelyn smiled faintly. "I used to be one of those people." She ended the call gently, like closing a chapter without slamming the cover. That evening, she found Nathan chopping vegetables in the kitchen, sleeves rolled music low in the background. Lily was on the floor with crayons singing to herself and drawing stars that didn't stay within the lines. "You'll never guess what I turned down today," Evelyn said, leaning against the counter. Nathan didn't look up. "Another empire." "Something like that. Do you regret it?" She watched him slice a carrot with easy rhythm. "I thought I might. But no, I feel lighter." Nathan placed the knife down, finally looking at her. "You used to carry your worth in titles. Now you carry it in peace. That scares me more than board meetings ever did, because peace is quiet, and in quiet you have to face yourself." Evelyn walked over, pressed her forehead lightly against his. "I like who I'm facing." Later that night, after Lily had gone to sleep, they sat on the porch under the stars with mismatched mugs of chamomile tea. It was the kind of evening where silence didn't beg to be filled. "I think I know what I want to build," Evelyn said. Nathan looked at her. "Tell me." "A foundation. For women leaving high-power jobs, not because they failed, but because they finally chose to breathe. It's always rise and grind, lean in, outperform. But no one teaches you how to exhale." He nodded slowly. "That's beautiful." She turned toward him. "Would you help me?" Nathan smiled. "With the foundation or the exhaling?" "Both," she whispered. A week later, Evelyn took Lily out for a mother-daughter lunch. Just the two of them, matching scarves, whined, tangling their hair as they laughed through a park full of golden leaves. "Do you love my daddy?" Lily asked, mouth full of grilled cheese. Evelyn blinked. "That's a big question." Lily shrugged. "I'm a big girl." Evelyn smiled. "Yes, I do. Very much." Lily beamed. "He loves you too." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Did he tell you that he doesn't have to?" Lily said. "I can tell by how he looks at you. Like you're the story he always wanted to read." Evelyn bit her lip, blinking against the sudden sting in her eyes. Kids, she thought. They always knew the truth before the adults were ready to say it. That night, Nathan waited for Evelyn on the back porch holding something in his hand. It wasn't a ring. It was a photo, worn at the edges. A little girl in a hospital bed holding a small bear, and beside her, a younger Nathan, sleep-deprived, scared, but smiling. "She was 3 when I took this," he said, voice soft. "The doctor said we might lose her that night, but I sang to her until she fell asleep. I was so afraid I couldn't fix it, that I'd fail her." Evelyn stepped closer, eyes on the photo. "You didn't." "No. But I was alone, and I swore to myself if we made it through that storm, I'd never pretend to be invincible again." He looked at her, emotion flickering in his voice. "I never told anyone this, not even her." Evelyn reached out, gently traced the edge of the photo with her finger. "We all wear armor, but the real strength is when we choose to take it off." He looked at her for a long moment. "You make me want to be soft again." She smiled through the ache. "You make me believe soft can still mean strong." They stood there in silence, wrapped in night air and memory. Then Evelyn said without preamble, "I'm ready." Nathan blinked. For what? For all of it. The uncertainty, the mess, the mornings with burnt toast and mismatched socks, the bedtime stories, the quiet dinners. You, her, us. He didn't answer with words. He just pulled her into a kiss that said, "Thank you. I see you, and I'm home all at once." Later, lying under a blanket on the couch, Evelyn rested her head against Nathan's chest, listening to the steady beat of something she no longer had to chase. "I used to believe I had to own the world to matter," she whispered, "and now I just want to belong to something real." Nathan kissed the top of her head. "You already do." Outside, snow began to fall again, slow and quiet, like a secret between two people who'd finally stopped running. They didn't need empires. They had each other, and for the first time in both their lives, that was more than enough. It began with waffles. Not contracts, not conferences, not corporate takeovers or headlines. Just waffles, imperfectly golden, slightly overcooked at the edges with too much whipped cream and sliced strawberries shaped like hearts. Evelyn stood barefoot in Nathan's small kitchen, her silk robe tied loosely, her hair still damp from the morning shower. She had never felt more like herself. Lily came skipping in her superhero cape, trailing behind her like a comet of joy. "Smells like Saturday," she announced, climbing onto her chair. Nathan behind her kissed the top of her head. "Correction. It smells like Evelyn's waffles, which means we may need a fire extinguisher nearby." Evelyn rolled her eyes. "Mock me one more time and you're getting oatmeal for a month." "I love oatmeal," he grinned. "Liar." They all laughed together, full and free. After breakfast, Evelyn stepped out onto the porch with a mug of black coffee. The sky was a sheet of winter blue stretched tight over pine trees glistening from last night's frost. She wrapped herself tighter in her robe and breathed in the kind of air that reminded her she was no longer racing. Behind her, she could hear Nathan and Lily debating the merits of marshmallows and hot cocoa, and for the first time in decades, she felt something she never thought she'd know again. Stillness that didn't come from exhaustion, but from enoughness. Later that day, Evelyn drove alone to a small brick building in the city, the future home of her foundation. The sign hadn't gone up yet, but the paint still smelled fresh. She walked through the empty space, slowly, fingertips brushing along the newly built walls. In her mind, she saw it. Women seated in circles. single dads carrying toddlers while learning to pitch ideas, teen moms with laptops, entrepreneurs who once felt invisible finally being seen. Her assistant, Carmen, walked in from the back. "Press is asking if you'll do a ribbon cutting," Carmen said, clipboard in hand. "Only if we let Lily cut it," Evelyn replied with a smile. Carmen laughed. "You're different, you know. Softer." "I'm not softer," Evelyn said. "I'm just less armored. Same thing." Evelyn turned to look out the window at the street. "I used to think leadership meant walking alone. Now I know it means building a table and adding chairs." She placed her hand on the center beam of the wall, grounding herself. "This place isn't just about helping people start over. It's about helping them start right." That evening, she returned to find the porch wrapped in twinkling lights. Lily ran to greet her, cheeks pink from the cold, holding something behind her back. "What are you hiding?" Evelyn asked, kneeling down. Lily pulled out a crumpled piece of paper with a child's drawing, a stick-figure family, Nathan, Lily, and Evelyn all holding hands beneath a lopsided rainbow. "I made this at school," she said proudly. "We were supposed to draw our family." Evelyn stared at the drawing. Something in her chest cracked open. "You drew me in the middle," she whispered. "Yeah," Lily said, "because you're the one who holds us together." That night, after Lily was asleep, Evelyn stood at the edge of Nathan's small backyard, wrapped in his coat. Snowflakes began to fall, gently silent as blessings. Nathan stepped up behind her arms, wrapping around her waist. "I bought a ring today," he said softly. She turned slowly, startled. "I didn't get down on one knee," he added, "because I don't want to propose at you. I want to grow with you. So when you're ready, not for a performance, not for tradition, but just a promise, I'll be here." She stared at him, heart steady. "I don't need time," she said. "I just needed you." Their wedding wasn't in a ballroom. It was in the backyard, under a canopy of pine trees and borrowed string lights, with Lily as the flower girl and the officiant all in one. She declared them husband and wife with a proud, "You may now kiss the bride," but only for 5 seconds. They laughed through their vows. There was no orchestra, no publicist, no first dance choreographed by a professional. There was just love, and enough chili in the slow cooker for everyone from the local diner to Nathan's mechanic friends to the neighbors who had watched Lily grow up on their street. It was messy and joyful and perfectly human, and it was the most honest thing Evelyn had ever been part of. Months later, a journalist asked her at a quiet press event, "Ms. Black, what would you say is your proudest legacy?" Evelyn looked out into the crowd. Then, slowly, she replied, "My proudest legacy is knowing when to walk away from what I thought made me powerful and toward what actually made me whole." The crowd clapped, but more importantly, Lily, sitting in the front row, clapped the loudest, and Nathan behind the camera smiled like he had the first night she walked into his life, soaked in rain and unknowingly about to change everything. In the end, it wasn't the money. It wasn't the mansion. It wasn't even the miracle. It was this, that 2 broken people, each guarding their own wounds, found the courage to be seen. That love, true, gentle, patient love, didn't demand perfection. It only asked for presence, and when given freely, it healed everything it touched, even hearts that had forgotten how to believe, even hers, even his, even ours. And that was the story of a single dad, a billionaire woman who just wanted peace and the quiet kind of love that changed all their lives. Where are you watching from? I'd love to know what part of the world you're in, and more importantly, how this story made you feel. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another story like this one. Every view, every comment, every share helps us keep bringing you more soul-stirring tales about love, hope, and second chances. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, stay kind, stay human, and never stop believing in quiet miracles.